Hello, and welcome to step 3 of the process, the I Eat What I Need 7-step process. So this is called being curious. And curiosity is something that I first discovered when I did a mindfulness course here in Brighton with a really great mindfulness teacher called Rory Singer. And he introduced me to the term compassionate curiosity, and I love that idea. I love that term, compassionate curiosity. And being curious in the I Eat What I Need process is very, very much sort of the glue that holds many of the other steps together. So we began with noticing, so we're kind of noticing our behaviours, noticing our habitual thoughts and patterns, noticing when and how and why we're eating and how we feel about that, noticing our relationship with food and body. And in step 2, in creating space, we're starting to use our motivation, use the power of choice, and use our spiritual values to create space between the thought of and the urge to eat and the actual act of eating. So we're injecting that space, that kind of rather impulsive, cravey space, with an idea of, but what about me? What about the kind of life that I want to lead? And what about eating what I need? And what about giving myself a choice here? And when we're doing that, we're starting to reprogram our own brains, our own neurology, and we're stepping out of habit, and we're stepping into awareness, stepping into mindfulness. And noticing and creating space can, if we don't have curiosity, if we don't have compassionate curiosity, it can become quite onerous, quite mechanical, and also it can become another opportunity to just beat ourselves up. Like, I've been noticing that I'm having just tons of craving. I've been noticing that I'm just eating loads of shit. I've been noticing that there is no space between the thought and the action. I can't create space. So I'm noticing the fact that there is no space. Bad me, bad me, bad me. I'm such a bad eater. I have such a terrible body. And the thing about curiosity is that, and particularly compassionate curiosity, is that we use the mantra, actually, of I am my own detective. I quite like that one, I'm my own detective, in that my solutions and my awakenings and my kind of aha moments might be very different to yours. And the lessons that I'm learning in this lifetime, in terms of my relationship with food and body, may also be very different to the lessons that you're learning in this lifetime. And if we can just stay curious about what is this eating about? Why is there no space? What is this about? Can we stay curious about the lessons that we're learning through this eating journey and through this kind of maybe also a body image journey? What lessons am I learning? And for me, if there is no space between my thoughts about food and my eating, if I'm curious about that, so there's no space, I'm just kind of stuff, munch, and I feel like there's no opportunity to kind of breathe or do anything but just kind of follow through on these very strong impulses. If I'm just curious about that, I might start to wonder, what does that tell me about me and my life? What does that tell me about what I'm experiencing at the moment? What does that tell me about who I am as an eater, as a person, as a whole human being? And the eating journey, and also the journey of making peace with your body, of being with your body, for me is always a reflection and a mirror of what might be going on in other elements of your life, other aspects of your life. And learning to eat, learning to be comfortable in your body, these learning pathways are amazing teachers in teaching us to be more compassionate, teaching us to respect our bodies and respect the planet more. I feel like my eating journey has taught me so much about myself and about others, about humankind, about myself as a spiritual being as well. It's been my greatest teacher in this lifetime so far. And when we're curious, we also know that change and growth is always possible. Always. The nature of a human is to change and grow and develop. And we know that to be scientifically true because we have neuroplasticity. That's a big one, I think, for this step. This step of being curious is that we're not imposing change upon ourselves by giving us like a 5-point plan or a 6-week kind of program. We are just open and curious about, I wonder what my eating might kind of grow into. I wonder what my relationship with my body might kind of grow into over time. Change is possible. Everybody can change their brains because the neurons that fire together wire together. That's something I learnt from You Are Not Your Brain, really interesting book recommended to me by an IEWIN member, or participant maybe, better word. So it's just like, I'm a linguist, for example. When I'm, let's say, actively speaking French every day, all day, my kind of French-speaking neurons, they just get better and better and better, and they're just wiring together, and it gets smoother and smoother and smoother, and over time, everything just comes back to that really fluid place of feeling really fluent and lovely and Frenchy. And because I haven't spoken French for quite a long time, my French neurons are kind of, they're just a bit rusty and they're a bit clunky, and I'm trying to get the French out and it's sort of coming out kind of sideways, and I'm just not feeling perhaps that same fluidity. It's because my neurons have literally just kind of got old and rusty and broken down. Maybe not literally. I don't think they actually do get rusty up there. But I think you know what I mean, in that when we're doing something again and again and again, day after day, we will create new pathways in our brain. And even though perhaps we all say that, you know, younger people and young children, they're able to learn more quickly, neuroplasticity isn't something that goes away. You know, we're always able to learn new things. I mean, my mother-in-law is learning English really beautifully, and she's in her 50s, you know, so change is always possible. And this is my little poster for when I did this week of the process with my last group about being curious. I wrote here, what lessons am I learning in this lifetime? A really big one for curiosity. Again, neuroplasticity, what we just talked about, change is always possible. And this one here, which I think is quite interesting, developing new feedback systems. So we try something new. So maybe we try a small amount of a new food. Maybe we try a new body practice. Maybe we try coming home, lying down on the floor and having a few gentle breaths. Maybe we try eating more, eating less. Maybe we try having our breakfast a little bit later in the day. Whatever we feel like trying, because we feel maybe that might be good for us. It might be something that our body's asking for. We just see how that feels. We're curious. I'm just curious about what would it feel like for me to have breakfast at 10 o'clock rather than 7 o'clock? What would that feel like for me and my body? Eating, I don't know, more veggies. How does that feel for my body? Maybe, and if it feels good, this like little new feedback system, if it feels good, repeat, you know, okay, cool. So my body likes having breakfast a bit later in the day. My body really likes getting some hydration first before I eat, you know, and it's not because somebody said, right, you have to hydrate first and then have your breakfast. You know, I I decided, okay, I've got two options. One is to eat first, the other one is to hydrate first. I'm going to try both. I'm going to be curious about the sensations in my body, see how they feel, and from that curiosity, if I choose to, I might make some changes. I don't have to do that all the time for the rest of my life. I can do that for as long as it feels useful and comfortable for me. And in that way, we do actually learn new supportive habits. It's funny, for years and years and years, I never tongue scraped. I don't know what tongue scraping is. It's like a little plastic thing. And when I went to see an Ayurvedic doctor, he recommended in the morning that I scrape my tongue. And you just get the crap off your tongue, basically, and you just scrape it off. And now in the morning, I really notice if I don't do that, because my mouth just feels a bit furry and kind of a bit meh. And because I notice that feedback of, this feels a bit furry, a bit gross, I'm kind of instantly drawn to this very simple, very quick practice of just quick tongue scrape, quick sort of swirl around the mouth. And it just gives me this feeling of freshness that I enjoy and that I like. And this habit of tongue scraping is now completely effortless and very integrated into my morning kind of awakening practice, like you would brush your teeth. It's like in the morning, if you haven't brushed your teeth or you've forgotten, you feel a bit gross, don't you? Like, I feel a bit ugh. And I think it's the same thing with eating now. I'm pretty sure that if I had a plate of the food that I used to eat, and if I sort of looked at it now, I think, this looks a bit strange, because I'm used to seeing much more greenery and much more veg on my plate. So now when I have a plate of beige, it sort of looks a bit wrong, it feels a bit wrong. And I'm sure, in my digestion, it would feel a bit wrong as well. And being curious is all about, the last point I put here is all about creating your own unique solutions. So we are challenging mainstream ideas, we're challenging the received wisdom of the time, and we're also challenging all the stuff that you just know doesn't work for you. Like, diets don't work for anyone. Let's not bother, For me, weighing myself doesn't work for me. I know that if I weigh myself, I can, whether it's good or bad or whatever, or higher or lower, it doesn't seem to matter. It just kind of gets me into this mindset of being a number and being a thing on a machine, when actually I'm not a thing on a machine. I'm a body, I'm flesh and blood, and I'm this living, breathing, very fluid thing. And weighing myself doesn't work for me. So why would I ever really do that? So for now, I know that doesn't work for me. Maybe at some point in the future it might, but for now, I've been curious about that. I've noticed my reaction to weighing myself when I do, and it doesn't help. So if you really know that something doesn't help, why would you do it? If you know that, for example, watching the Great British Bake Off, I know many people love that show. I know for me, I loved it. It was like my favourite thing for so many years, but I'm just too sensitive to all of that flour and sugar, and I'm just too sensitive to all of those super yummy things, and I can't really watch that without feeling really kind of cravey. I just know that for the days after, I'm just going to be dreaming about custard tarts and stuff, and I don't really want to put that on myself. So it's not that I've said to myself, you must never watch the Great British Bake Off again. I've watched it, I've noticed my responses to it, I've been curious about how it makes me feel, and I've kind of asked myself, do I want to do this to myself or not? So be curious about the effect that different things have on you, whether that's the media, or whether that's the conversations you have with people, the relationships you have with people, the kind of food you consume, the different times of day that you do things, different habits that you have. Be curious about their effects and be open to some positive feedback, perhaps, of any new behaviours that you might want to experiment with. It's all about experimentation, and you are your own detective. You're the one who's out there in the world playing with these different things and seeing what works for you, and letting go of old stuff that you just know is not helpful anymore. And these new behaviours, they might actually be supportive and helpful for a time, and then you might feel that actually I don't need to do that anymore. You know, I'm happy to move on to something different. We're very fluid in our process, and what I need. There's no one right way that is going to work for everybody forever. There's a developing practice of just being curious about your experience, which will allow you to kind of ebb and flow with the different changes of your life as you move through different phases of your life, and you live in different places, and you have access to different kinds of food and different relationships. All of these things, we're open to that. I eat what I need. So be curious, my friends. Be curious about what you're consuming and what effect it has on you, and be interested in these kind of positive feedback loops of, okay, this is supportive, this is helpful, great, I might choose to keep doing this, or this is really unsupportive, this is really hurting me, I don't fancy this anymore. And yeah, you are your own best detective. Bye guys.